Kushim was the first known human whose name we know. Not a king or queen, he was likely an accountant. His name appeared on a 5,000-year-old Mesopotamian tablet. Simple, a receipt of commercial transactions on which is written 29,086 measures of barley were received in 37 months. Kushim is only a name, nothing else is known. Nearly 50 centuries later, in 1936, due to the lack of information from ancient civilizations, Professor Thornwell Jacobs proposed creating a Crypt of Civilization, a tomb of memories sending a message to the future. Objects, texts, and audio or video recordings were collected in an airtight container. Then the crypt was sealed with a heavy stainless steel door and welded shut. On site, there is a plaque begging future visitors to keep this door closed. 6,177 years to open it, only in the year 813. Bear witness and tell tomorrow's world who today's men were. A date that is not left to chance, for by then as much time will have passed since the beginning of the project as since the supposed date of humanity's first calendar, the Egyptian calendar, which is believed to have been established in 4241 before Jesus Christ. This mysterious chest, holding only 1930s memories, is widely regarded as the first modern time capsule. Preserving goods and information for future generations requires a collective effort. And very quickly, the question arises whether the contents of these bunkers will withstand the passage of time and reach their destination in the future. If that's true, will our distant descendants be able to understand or read the messages they contain? Languages evolve, change, and sometimes disappear. Today, museums hold mysterious artifacts that remain unexplained, like the Phaistos disk, which is almost 4 millennia old and remains undeciphered. The Rosetta Project was created to help preserve languages and save key tools for deciphering messages. Noting that 50% to 90% of languages worldwide may vanish this century, they aim to create a modern Rosetta Stone. The famous engraved stele, with 3 versions of the same text, enabled the deciphering of hieroglyphs in the 19th century. To endure over time, project members created nickel alloy discs that fit in your hand with information engraved microscopically. 13,000 pages explaining how about 1,500 languages function. Maybe someday this could help rediscover lost languages. A copy of this disc, readable with a microscope at 650x magnification, is now attached to the Rosetta space probe, which rests on a comet. So, nearly 1,500 Earth languages are archived in space on a medium that shouldn't begin to degrade for another 2,000 years. That's about 1/5 of the minimum expected lifespan for this storage disk, which is barely 5 centimeters wide, called high-density Rosetta. This medium holds the equivalent of 196,000 pages said to last at least 10 millennia. An enormous duration, 20 times longer than the reign of the Roman Empire. When the information stored on this disk begins to lose its readability, we will then be twice as far from our present as we are now from the invention of writing. There are also preservation projects like time capsules such as the KO satellite, meant to last even longer into the future. Once launched, it won't return to Earth for 50,000 years. A time span 2.5 times longer than the gap between us and the Lascaux cave paintings. On board, protected by a hollow sphere, resistant to cosmic radiation, there would be a drop of blood encased in a diamond. Iron discs engraved with a synthetic summary of all the knowledge accumulated by humanity, along with symbolic instructions on building a machine to read these discs. The artist also planned to reserve some storage space for contemporaries' testimonies, allowing anyone on Earth to share their life story, dreams, hopes, or fears. Thus, KO becomes the guardian of today's humanity's memory, addressing tomorrow's. Due to a lack of funding and the technical difficulties of storing such large amounts of information capable of withstanding the passage of time on such small media, KO is currently at a standstill. But there is a backup capsule that is currently under development, aiming to preserve an image of our knowledge and our era. For at least 100,000 years, this is memory of mankind, memory of humanity, a critique of an all-digital civilization. It reminds us that no matter what media we use to store our data, floppy disks, CDs, DVDs, USB drives, or hard disks, they all have lifespans of just a few decades. At best, which is less than that of a book. And even what's on the cloud isn't eternal. Stored on huge servers, our information is inexorably erased regularly. They have to be renewed, copied, and above all, to be read, require mastery of specific technologies. Based on this observation, project members created simple ceramic tablets designed to last over time, for nearly 100,000 years. Readable with a simple magnifying glass, up to 50,000 characters per tablet are microscopically engraved on them. By copying what we know in miniature and then sending it toward the future, memory of mankind is, in a way, doing what scribes or copyists have done for centuries before them. But copying onto something durable doesn't guarantee its safety. For example, it's estimated that between 1 and 10% of ancient literature has reached us. Wars, upheavals, climate policies, and collapses may have permanently erased parts of the history of now lost civilizations. It's to shield their time capsule from the inevitable upheavals that will shake our world. The project's creators chose to bury them in one of Austria's oldest salt mines. There, away from the troubles of the surface, in galleries gradually sealed by natural processes. In a few generations, they will preserve today's knowledge for future generations. From then on, the question becomes, through these messages, what memories do we want to leave behind? What do we have to say to future generations? And to remember these archives and prevent them from being forgotten. Each participant in the project is given a token indicating the location of the mine. They will have to give it to their descendants, who in turn will have to do the same without breaking the chain for a period that could stretch to 100,000 years. But is it even possible to pass on information over thousands of generations? A question that prompts us to explore both our dreams and nightmares. Because all the time, capsules we've just talked about are meant to be rediscovered and then opened. There are other boxes we would rather see closed forever, meant to be forgotten. These are not treasures, but rather Pandora's boxes. That's the case with the Oncalo nuclear waste disposal site in Finland. Construction on this complex, 500 meters underground, with 5 kilometers of tunnels, began late last century and should finish soon. In 2120, the surface facilities will be destroyed, the tunnels will be filled in, and the doors will be sealed. We hope forever. Or, more precisely, for a minimum duration of 100,000 years, which is the approximate date after which, if anyone remembers its location, the gates of Oncalo can be opened again without danger. Can we remember a site's danger for thousands of years? And what if Oncalo's existence is forgotten? If it ends up being forgotten, how can we make sure it isn't rediscovered? And if it is, how can we make those who might be there, driven by curiosity, understand that they absolutely must not go inside? This infrastructure could be seen as a place of worship, a tomb, or hidden treasure. Will our distant descendants understand our symbols and warnings? So many questions that may remain unanswered forever. And even so, what would you do when faced with a door that says, "There is nothing of value here, you will only find danger"? Please do not enter for 100,000 years, a period 22 times longer than the time between now and the building of the Great Pyramids. At the end of which, one might think that all traces of the activities of today's humans will have been covered in turn by those of the humans of tomorrow, assuming they still exist. And maybe that's the strangest thing of all. With the Oncalo project, he encourages us to consider a future story beyond ourselves and question endless possibilities and scenarios. Because while the behavior of rocks can be predicted over 100,000 years, it's a whole different story otherwise. For those of the societies that dug them, it's impossible to anticipate changes, even over just a few decades. The aim is to shield future humanity from stored waste, but more importantly, to protect the waste from possible actions by future generations. In 100,000 years, when Oncalo's radioactivity has lessened enough for possible access, and when the ceramic tablets of memory of mankind start to become unreadable, a time capsule will still be orbiting around us. It's now about 5,900 kilometers above us. On Ageos, a satellite covered with small mirrors that is used to precisely measure from the ground the movement of tectonic plates on the surface of our planet. Ageos is a passive satellite. It contains no power source or instruments. And even though it's placed in a very stable orbit, it will eventually come down under the combined effect of the laws of nature alone. It will fall back in about 8.4 million years. returning with a plaque displaying the continent's arrangement in the past, present, and as predicted upon its Earth return. This engraving is currently the time capsule intended to reach us the farthest into the future. When this metal postcard returns to Earth, our planet will look different than it does today. On this timescale, we don't know what our descendants will look like or if they'll exist. The average lifespan of a species on Earth is 5 to 10 million years. Yet, even then, 4 time capsules with no specific recipient will surely still exist. These are on the Pioneer and Voyager probes. These space-bound messages in bottles like plaques and golden records will likely journey on forever, attached to their probes, awaiting interception by possible extraterrestrial civilizations in a distant future. Eventually, even these business cards of humanity will lose their information due to cosmic erosion. It's estimated Voyager's attachments will be unreadable after 1 billion years. The probes themselves may continue to drift, carrying messages that have become indecipherable, in reality, whether they take the form of golden records or buried shoeboxes. All the time capsules we've just talked about have a major flaw for future archaeologists, in that they are intentional. They just show what we want. And often kept sealed, they're like museums of the inaccessible. From this perspective, involuntary capsules like Pompeii, where the present is nearly entirely frozen by accident, are much more valuable, because it doesn't choose what to display. This intentional capsule weakness could also be its strength. Because if it's not possible to save everything, then the question arises of what we want to remember through our descendants. What deserves to be kept? In April 2018, the European Space Agency released the most detailed map of our galaxy to date. And where you can see nearly 1.7 billion stars, perhaps one of the most fascinating images of the last decade. It took 5 years of data collection and analysis to create this high-precision sky map. But the whole thing, in terms of size, only represents the equivalent of 0.03% of the world's daily internet traffic. And then fill a shoebox with family photos and a few trinkets, hoping that one day someone will come across it. It's like building a time machine for those who open it and traveling into the future for those who fill it. Because choosing what we put in it is about asking ourselves what legacy we want to leave behind, what mark we want to make. It's a way to connect with future generations. What will they say about us? Maybe poems? That's the idea behind the Letters of Utrecht project. In the Dutch city with the same name, a poem is carved in stone and continually built. Each week, a carved stone letter is added to the sentences winding along the paths. The city's writers take turns, requiring years to finish a sentence. The whole thing creates a story that lets you see the passage of time, remember those who came before, and also leaves it to those who will come to continue the story. In 1993, for vending, Germany's 1200th anniversary construction began on the Time Pyramid, an artwork meant to be built across 1200 years by multiple generations. Every 10 years, a concrete block is added, with completion set for the year 3183. It's a reminder that it is possible, even on a small scale, just as the cathedral builders did in their time, to undertake projects that go beyond generations and span several centuries. But the most monumental of all the projects that seek to represent the passage of time is surely the Long Now clock. The clock of the Long Now. A gigantic mechanical clock that will keep time for the next 10,000 years and is currently under construction, buried in the mountains of Nevada. After nearly 30 years of research and the creation of several prototypes, the Long Now Association is about to launch a masterpiece of ingenuity. Built to run independently for twice the age of the Egyptian pyramids, and simply powered by seasonal temperature changes. A clock designed to tick for 10 millennia. If you're wondering why we built such an object, part of the reason is to make us ask these questions. And after asking it, that we bring up notions of generations and millennia as an invitation to think long term. And maybe that's really the treasure hidden at the heart of time capsule projects. These projects mainly serve as excuses to reflect on the present by imagining the future. Because questioning the future, whether in 10,000 or 10,000 years, it's also about thinking of solving the problems of our time and feeling connected to the effects they will have on the worlds of tomorrow. Today, our messages are often like empty plastic bottles tossed into the sea. Building a time capsule is less about asking what we want to say to our descendants than about questioning whether we are good ancestors. Even if imagining the future is hard, we can still care about it. And to make sure you keep the promises you've made to yourself, you can always write to your future self. Because many websites or postal services offer to send you messages at a date you choose in the future. This, in a surreal way, lets novices advise the most experienced person. Dear me, I hope you're doing well. I'm writing to remind you to think about burying a little time capsule somewhere. I send myself a hug. Take care of us.